When the lights go up and the whistle blows, she's the calm in the storm, the one who knows. Behind every game, every call, every play, there's a wife holding it down every day. Welcome to Whistles and Wives, the MVPs behind the whistle. Welcome, Mrs. Stephanie Scott. Thank you for joining us today on Whistles and Wives podcast. First, I'd like to get started. How about you just tell us where you're located currently and the school you're associated with?
We're at Reinhardt University in Waleska, Georgia.
Waleska, Georgia. Is that north, south?
It's north of Atlanta.
Okay. And can you tell us who your husband is and maybe what his title is?
His name is Tommy Scott, and he's actually semi-retired and is more of a consultant for Reinhardt.
And how long have you been married?
26 years.
Wow. That's quite an accomplishment.
Well, we actually renewed our vows at 25.
You just renewed your vows at 25 years? Congratulations. And I'm sure just being married, I know that every year has its own season, much like the football world. And so I'm sure a lot has transpired in those 25 years. And I hope to learn more about what you've experienced in those 25 years on today's episode. So I like to start off with an icebreaker question for all of my guests. And that icebreaker question is, if we saw you at a game today, what's something we wouldn't know about you?
That's a tough one because I'm such an open book. My husband's such a private person and he despairs of the fact that I'm so open. But I guess you wouldn't know that, gosh, there's really just nothing you don't know about me because I'm such an open book.
All right. So let's hop into this episode. And this episode is a more sensitive episode. I think I would like to start that off. So I just want to forewarn some of the listeners and things. We are discussing grief today. And I thought it was really important that you shared this part of your story because from what I've come to know about you, it's been really impactful in your life, the different things that you're currently doing. So could you share a little bit about maybe what we're going to be discussing today? And then I can move forward with the first question.
Sure. In the 1999 football season, my husband and I lost our baby son, Wynn, at 25 days old. And currently on the Hope side, I work for the Halo Morales Foundation, which is a child loss foundation. So God has brought things full circle for me.
Okay. So when you think back to that particular season, what do you remember most about how your life shifted in that moment?
I remember holding my son for the first time. I had preeclampsia and he was born early at 28 weeks. And so he was in an isolette, in the beginning. And I got to hold him on Thanksgiving Day for the very first time. And when I held him and looked into his eyes, I knew that he knew that I was his mother. And my whole perception changed. That huge maternal instinct that I have kicked in. And I had been very career oriented before and had no maternal instinct. It totally shifted my world. And part of who I am has been, quote, mom, unquote, to all these hundreds of football players over the years. And they have given me so much more than I've ever given them, which is such an amazing gift. So that's what I remember most is that moment holding my.
That instant shift, that maternal instinct. And the football season is challenging in and of itself. And to lose a child during that time, I'm sure it just tipped everything over. How did your coaching community respond to your loss?
Well, they were essential in it. And it wasn't just the loss. It was the time, that he was in the hospital the week that we had. He just lived for 25 days. And the week before he was even born that we were in the hospital, the head coach, it was football season. And the head coach allowed him to be with me in the hospital and calmed me. And when we were out of the hospital and Wynn was still in the hospital, the head coach's wife drove me to the hospital so I could see my son every day and took me to lunch. And so did some of the other coaches' wives, the head coach's wife most consistently. And then after he passed, they donated a tree for our yard that grew so beautifully and a seat in the stadium. And then there was another coach's wife, Shelly, that's still a friend to this day, that would come over to my house and not let me just lock myself in my house and just stay a puddle of tears. You know, she would knock on my door and knock on my door, even though I'd turn on the shower and pretend I was in it. You know, she would just keep knocking and be so persistent to not let me just stay in the house.
So they really became a strong community for you.
Strong community. They would call and send sweet notes, and it made a real difference in the healing that I had.
And would you say that's what you needed at that time? Is that sense of community?
Community was very important.
Okay. And then I'd like to ask, what did grief look like for you and your husband individually?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You and I talked about this. You know, I struggled with sharing this question because it's so profound in marriage, because men and women grieve so differently. And I actually found a journal. I went back and I list my journals by years, and I still have all my journals. And I found a journal entry that I wrote at that time. And what I wrote was, there's a kind of silence that follows the loss of a child. It's not just quiet, it's hollow. It's the sound of an empty nursery, of a name you still whisper, of the heartbeat you once heard but can't hear anymore. When I lost my baby boy, the world didn't just stop, it shifted. The colors changed, the air felt heavier, and even laughter, the same laughter that once came so easily, felt foreign for a long time. People often feel that grief is a season you go through and come out of us, but for those of us who buried our babies, it's not something we get over. It's something we grow around. It lives in the tender places of our heart alongside love. There are moments I still ache so sharply that I have to stop and just breathe through it. And then there are moments when I sense God's presence so closely in the light of a candle and a song, in the warmth of a sunrise. And I know my son's story isn't over. He's part of my eternal story now. Grief in its own way has become a teacher. It's taught me that love never dies. It's taught me that heaven isn't far. It's taught me to hold a space for both sorrow and hope, because somehow in God's mysterious mercy they can coexist. So if you're listening and you've lost a baby, please know you are not alone. Your tears are sacred. Your love is eternal. This is the part I added to it. Sorry. Your tears are sacred. Your love is eternal. And even though your world may move on, your child's life still matters because it changed you. And through you, your love still ripples out in the world. Grief doesn't look the same way for everyone, even under the same roof, even when two hearts are broken over the same tiny life. I grieved out loud through tears, words, poured into journals and whispered up to heaven. But Tommy, he grieved in silence. Where my sorrow poured in, his settled in. I used to think it meant we weren't walking together through it, but over time I've realized we just took different paths to the same place, love. Because the love that broke us is still the same love that's binding us back together. When we lost our baby boy, I carried my grief in my arms, but Tommy, he carried it differently. His grief was quieter, the kind that doesn't have words. It lived behind his steady eyes, the way he clenched his jaw when someone said our next son's name, the way he looked just a little too long at a baby boy tossing a football in a park. You see, coaches are trained to lead, to fix, to plan, to push through. Grief doesn't have a playbook. It leaves you standing on a field with no clock, no scoreboard, and no clear way to win. Tommy doesn't talk about it too much, but I could see it. I saw it in how he went back to work, how he poured himself into his players, teaching them discipline, heart, teamwork, all the things he wanted to teach our son one day. But that was his way of loving him, of still being his dad. For a long time, I thought his silence meant he wasn't feeling it like I was, but I've come to understand his grief was real. It was just built differently. It was worn under the armor of a coach, a protector, a man who couldn't bear the world to see him break. And yet, even now and then, when I see the game lights dim or he's sitting alone watching film, I wonder if somewhere in the quiet he's thinking of our boy. Maybe, just maybe, imagine him running that first route in heaven straight into the arms of Jesus. What I've learned is grief doesn't end. It changes shape. It softens around the edges, but it never ends because love never disappears. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the ache still catches us off guard, isn't a sign that we're stuck in the past. Maybe it's proof that heaven keeps us connected. There are still moments when the tears come and moments when Tommy and I both go quiet, each lost in our own memory of our son that might have been. But in those quiet spaces, I've also felt something sacred, peace, not the kind that erases the pain, but the kind that sits with you in it, a peace that only God can give. And I think that's how love endures after loss. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it just stays steady, holy, and eternal. Our baby boy might not be in our arms, but he's in every act of kindness we give, every bit of faith we hold on to, and every heartbeat that still whispers, thank you, Lord, for letting us love him even for a moment. Because love like that never dies, it just finds a way home. Well, like I said, men and women, they grieve differently. And it's, if I have any regrets about that time, it's just that I did not make my needs clear to my husband. And if anybody is going through something like that, the best thing I can say is talk.
First, I want to thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that journal entry on this podcast. I want to acknowledge that and share my appreciation for you taking the courage to do so. And I do hope that those beautiful words that you wrote for such a difficult time, that it reaches the person that it's supposed to reach. And I also want to touch on your vulnerability that you just mentioned in connecting with your husband and letting him know what you're feeling or experiencing or even needing in your time of grief, and how that could have been more helpful for you. And hopefully another wife can hear that and have the courage to be vulnerable.
Well, I wouldn't have felt so alone, it's daytime hours that the coaching family would help you and that sort of thing. It's in those times that you are just you and your husband that you do want to feel like your grief is shared. That had I just spoken up, that I just needed to talk about my son, that I needed to, hear it's going to be okay, that I'm going to be okay.
What role, so in your journal, you did mention that thinking about your husband and him going back to work and maybe the thoughts or the dreams that he may have had for your son, what role, if any, did football play in healing? Was it a distraction? Was it a burden or?
Well, it ended up being good for me, because I did have the relationship I had with the kids. We did end up moving to another school, and I got very involved with the fundraising and, really enjoyed that. I got my husband's support about leaving my job, which was I was a private club manager, and being very, having to be very up on the top, positive and that sort of thing was very wearing, and having his support for leaving the job was very important. And getting involved in the program and having that to share together, was truly a blessing.
And so I want to just switch gears slightly. How did losing your son reshape your perspective on life as a coach's wife?
Well, it definitely reshaped my life in the relationship with the other boys, the players.
Meaning that you found more purpose in forming those relationships? Or could you elaborate a little bit more?
It gave me an outlet for the maternal instinct I have. It gave me somewhere for the love to go and gave me the opportunity to support the kids and gave me the opportunity to receive so much from them.
That's beautiful. I love that you mentioned it gave you an opportunity to show love, or all this love you had built up inside. Now you had some place for it to go. So not feeling a loss in the sense that now I have this maternal instinct and all of this love to share, and I don't have any place for it to go. That's really beautiful. So this happened in, you said 1999. So today in 2025, what does honoring your son look like?
Well, it's in all my interactions, There's a poem that the minister wrote for my son's funeral that I was very angry with him at the time. I thought, how dare the minister think that heaven was a better place than was a better place than a mother's arms for a baby, but I'm now so proud of that poem. It hangs on the wall right by the door in my house. And it talks about how God takes tiny ones before they feel the perils of the earth still cheer from heaven's bench from the teams that they came from. It's a beautiful poem. It's called The Cheers from Heaven's Bench. And I feel like it shapes me, and that I want to make my son proud of me in my interactions, and that I feel like it does honor my son in my marriage being so strong and putting God at the center of my marriage and renewing the vows, and my husband and I working on our marriage and doing marriage devotions every day the way we do and that sort of thing. That honoring my son and the relationship I do have with the players, not just the players that are playing on the team now, but just like going to Reinhardt's game on Saturday and former players being there and talking to them about what they're doing now, and actually talking to the girlfriend of one of the players that's been married for 6 years and they've been living together for 2 about, wouldn't it be a little bit more God-loving to be married at this point? And I think it's all honoring, don't you?
It sounds like it. It sounds like you take the spirit of your son with you every single day, and your actions on a daily basis seem to definitely honor your son. What would you like to share with another coach's wife who may be walking through grief right now?
I actually wrote that down because I think that's important. I just want to let you know that your grief is real. It's sacred and it matters. And it just doesn't have to look like anyone else's. Even if your husband grieves quietly, even if the world keeps moving, your heart is seen. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be silent. It's okay to lean on God and on the people who love you, even when it feels hard. Your husband may carry his grief like a coach on the sidelines, steady, quiet, trying to protect everyone, but that doesn't mean he's not hurting, and it doesn't mean you have to walk through this alone. You can support each other, even in silence, even in the messy moments, because the love for your child, your husband, and God is stronger than grief. And I want you to hold on to this. Your child's life, brief as it may have been, left a mark that will never fade. You are not broken. You are not forgotten. You are deeply, eternally loved.
Stephanie, once again, I just want to thank you. Thank you for sharing this part of you. I'm really hopeful that this reaches the person that it's supposed to reach. I don't know who that is, but I'm just grateful for you to share your story and share your experience. I want to touch on, you mentioned the foundation that you're a part of now because of your son. What's the name of that foundation? And can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Foundation, it's based in Tampa.
Could you say that one more time? Your voice kind of cut out.
The Halo Morales Foundation, it's based in Tampa, Florida. I work remotely and flexibly, which is awesome. because I can still support my husband and enjoy the semi-retirement life where we can still walk the dogs together and have meals together, which light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, Chelsea, the founder, is so supportive and loving and giving, which is awesome. And anyway, what we do is we provide things like funeral expenses, other needs like that for people that have lost children. We provide SIDS education, CPR training for caregivers, and we provide mental health care for people that can't afford it, who have lost children and babies. And I'm the director of fundraising and development.
Awesome. Sounds like an awesome organization and another way that you're honoring your son.
And we're going to have 2 events in December, one in Florida and one in Georgia for expectant mothers who have a giving tree.
And are the listeners able to go to the website to get more information?
Yes, it's www.halomorales.org, halomoralesfoundation.org.
Stephanie, my last question for you. I do kind of like a quick fire question. So you weren't expecting this, and it's a fun question. So what's your current game day MVP, or one thing that you must have that you take with you for a game day?
That I take with me? My phone for pictures.
Oh, yes. That's a great answer. I haven't heard that one before. Well, Stephanie, that is essentially the end of my questions. I want to thank you again for joining Whistles and Wives podcast and being vulnerable and sharing this very important but sensitive subject. And I just thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And you have a blessed rest of the day.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you for joining us. If this episode of Whistles and Wives spoke to you or you enjoyed it, please subscribe, write a review, like, comment, or share with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.